Hi, welcome to Genesis Show Home. Come join us. Welcome to our new series of Life at Home with Genesis. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to bake a bundt cake, which is great for this holiday season. But before I get started, I usually need two things when I'm baking. I need a drink, which I have here, and music. Okay, so let's get started. Ingredients. So you will need 2 cups of butter, 6 eggs, and separate them. So you'll need the white eggs and then the 6 yolks, 2 cups of flour all-purpose, 2 cups of sugar, 1 cup of milk, a tablespoon of baking powder, and a tablespoon of salt, and then a tablespoon of vanilla. Let's get started. Let's put our butter to our mixer, in our mixer. Okay, and then let's add the 2 cups of sugar. Okay, you'll need to mix this probably for 5 minutes. We want the mix to be fluffy and light. So think of a cloud. There you go. Okay, in the meantime, I want to work the white eggs. So let's get these over here. Let's get the other mixer. And it's actually very handy that we have a plug here so we can keep everything on the same place. Okay, so let's work on these. Probably for 5 minutes as well. Okay, so we have our whites, and I'll show you a trick of when to know when your whites are ready. Okay, so let's start with this here. And usually if you turn them, they're ready and they don't fall. That's risky. Okay. Okay, so we have our mixture here. It's fluffy, white and fluffy and large, which is looking really good. We're going to incorporate the yolks one by one. That way it actually mix it up really nicely. We don't want to separate the ingredients in the mix. We want them to be incorporated nicely. So just go one by one slowly. This will add a nice color to it. Okay, next step, we see that everything's looking good. We're going to add the milk. I usually slow the machine down because if not, you'll do a mess and it'll splash all over. And try to separate it in 3 parts. That way, again, we don't separate the mix and everything starts incorporating nicely. Okay, let's see how that's going. So now that they're in, you can maybe speed it up a bit. Baking, I always say baking is an art. It's not just mixing up ingredients, it has to do a lot with time, and it's just a feeling. Okay, so I split that up. I'm going to add the vanilla. Again, 1 tablespoon of vanilla. I like to be generous. Sometimes I just do it by eye, and I add a bit more of vanilla, but original recipe it's 1 tablespoon. Okay, so I usually leave it for a couple of minutes. So in the meantime, I'll have some of my drink. Okay, so I think it's looking really good. It's ready. So I'm going to slow it down. This is very important. Whenever we mix flour into the mixture, it's not recommended to mix it for too long because then the cake will flatten. Sometimes that happens, and the reason is because you stir the flour for too long. So the salt. I usually like adding the salt and the baking powder with the flour so everything is evenly spread throughout. Okay, that's that. Now we're going to be adding the flour. Again, slow your machine down. That way we don't over stir the flour. And again, we want to separate it in 3 parts. That way we don't separate the mix. That's looking really good. Okay. And here, as soon as you see that everything's combined, let's turn it off. And now, I like doing this part by hand. It's preferably not to mix it up too much or to work it that for too long. Okay, so that's that. Let's do this by hand. So let's make sure there's no leftovers on the sides. Okay, so this is looking really good. We're going to now incorporate our whites. So we're gonna be doing this slowly again. Okay, so now that we added our whites, we want to make sure that we incorporate them by doing wrapping movements and big movements. Just, it's always good to finish this bundt cake by hand. I highly recommend it. It makes a huge difference. Plus, you don't risk not actually rising. And good, it's looking great. Okay, amazing, perfect. That's that. Now, we're going to get our mold. I love this one, my favorite. It's the sparrow one. And what we're gonna be using is this spray. Let's make sure that we grease every single inch of the pan. It's really important that we do this so it doesn't get sick, especially because it's such an intricate design. Okay, so that is that. So now it's time to put our mix into the pan, into our beautiful mold. So just make sure that you add it everywhere. We want to make sure we get it all. Okay, so before putting it in the oven, I always like to bounce it for just a few times, just to make sure that all the air is out, especially for this cake mold. We want to make sure that every single spiral touches the mix. Okay, perfect, that is that. Okay, so now, final step is to put it in the oven. Okay, so that needs to stay there for an hour. And for final results, let's see, fingers crossed. Ta-da! There you go. So now you have a beautiful bundt cake for your holidays. Now the fun part, let's decorate. So you'll need some ice and sugar, and the idea here is for it to have some snowy effect. Just like that, easy. And then I usually like adding some greenery into my designs. I think it just completes it and warms it up a bit. Plus, it's the holidays, so you can't go wrong with some greenery. Okay, and next, I always love to add some frosty fruits. It's actually really nice because they look like they're covered in snow. Okay, and here you go. a final bundt cake for your holiday season. Now it's time to relax and enjoy the view here in Bayside in Genesis Land Community. Don't forget to visit our website, genesisland.com, for a chance to win an amazing baking giveaway. Thank you so much for joining, and happy holidays.